Right, this is my evaluation of the entire radio project. Right, to start off, I would say my research is kind of a bit it was sporadic in the time of making due to just delays on primary and secondary research, as I did not fully understand what I was looking for, and I was struggling to get the right sources, etc., etc. And some of the sources I had weren't the best, I must say, and it did lead to, again, delays, which then affected the production throughout. I would say though that if I had a chance to go back and do it, I believe it would have been better for me if I actually looked into doing some research into radio before, so I could get a clear foothold in it or understand it a bit better. Because again, it's kind of a repeat of the horror film, which is something I'm trying to work away from. Where I have and to move on onto some things like scripting and all the other pre-production work. The delays from primary secondary research spilled over into that, so and there were times where I wasn't in. For example, when writing the script, I was not in. This led to a bare bones of one, and we really needed a full flushed out one at that point. But all I could really do was the day that I did come in, I took the script and added a bit more meatiness to it, in a way, made it a bit longer to fill the brief, etc. Miss out because it was missing some things that needed to be in there, etc. All right, and like when other things came about, like let's say doing the primary research or like handing out a questionnaire, etc. Like I'm going back a bit, but I was having to do that stuff during this time period of like doing the script and etc. Where this stuff should have been done previously, but as again I was struggling and I wasn't able to, so I was having to do two things at the same time. And you can see an even like 50-50 of like where it's not much detailed or it's not very detailed. Again, because time I kind of had to like partially focus on one thing and then focus on the other. And you can see that in the work represented on my Wix page. All right, moving on to this, moving on to the process of recording and, moving on to the process of pitching. Now, pitching was a bit very difficult for me as, in the case, I was okay with getting the work quiet done. The PowerPoint was uploaded perfectly fine. There was nothing really wrong with it, other than the fact that some of the pages on the paragraphs on the pages were a bit meaty and were a bit kind of like hard to get across in a small amount of information in quick succession. This led to me having to start over multiple times because I just could not think of the words that were in my head or to carry on the sentence, so on and so forth. And so we had to do multiple recordings of that. And even on the PowerPoint, even though I said it was okay, there were some things missing from it, some things which weren't in too much detail, which could have been, I would say, put into more slides. That for example, the primary research showing the answers we got back from our questionnaire, that could have definitely been spread out a lot more, as because when we were pitching, we only touched on certain things, small things, like the really important things. But in doing so, we kind of left out things which needed to be in there, but not as importantly as the main questions, which led to some confusion among the audience. And more on from that, I believe there was no real examples of our radio show or any of our segments in our primary, no, not in our primary, in our pitch, which have kind of affected us badly in the sense that we weren't able to get across an idea of what our show would be like. We weren't able to get across that comedic, or we weren't able to give an example of a comedic and kind of non-serious, but also remaining serious in a way. We weren't able to get that across to the viewers. We were only able to describe it to them. We weren't able to give them an example, and so on and so forth. Now, moving into the actual production. The production, I felt, went okay, as I had prior experience in Adobe Audition. I was able to kind of get on with things a lot more easily. I'm like, yes, there were certain times where I needed to learn something, but again, something small, I could easily do it. There was an issue, however, in that with the recordings we did, because of the script and how it wasn't fully flushed out, when we were recording, there were points where we would read the script, and then it'll be like bracket insert so and so, or insert song name, insert Twitter name, etc. And it's kind of like it ended up like we would have to do multiple takes in the recording, and then whilst in editing those multiple takes, there would be a difference in sound, like a difference in tone. It was kind of difficult to merge it in a way that kind of sounded fluid, as if it was just me and Tendo going back and forth, like having a conversation. But other than that, the only other hiccups we came across in editing were to be picking the songs, because some of the songs in the clean, we couldn't find clean versions for them. So we ended up having to do clean edits of our own, which did take up a bit of time. But for me, generally, because I had few songs, I was able to pick a couple songs which did have clean edits to them, but because there were so few which didn't have clean edits to them, I was able to move along pretty easily, go in, sort out what needed to be done, what needed to be cleaned up, and then move on and carry on, which led to a productive production of the radio product. And I finished practically on schedule. Timing and everything's perfect, with, I believe, good fades when transitioning between song and speech, which has been noted in the peer assessment feedback I got. For example, I have a quote here, say, they have for the most part, have the crossfades been applied well? This is what I got back. They have for the most part, although the songs do overpower the presenter's speech, and so on and so forth, which was something that was also noted further down, where things to improve on were such as maybe adjusting the audio levels of the presenters, so it'll be more of a balance between the music and the speech, because I can say for myself, whilst editing, I did notice that, but every time I tried to go and change it, it would slip my mind and I'll move on to something else, as I was purely focused on getting the product done. And because I was focusing on such tiny things as crossfades, fade in, fade out, etc., it led to me skipping over this audio issue. Alright, overall though, I do believe the production, even though it was a bit slow in the beginning with primary and secondary research, it went alright, it went to plan in certain aspects, as the plan did change quite abruptly in most cases with script, how the show was laid out against the schedule list, because again, with the script being bare bones in some cases, we just had to work around and fit things into place, and when it came to editing, that did change up the schedule. The schedule was changed up again. But to say that, the production, like in all, went perfectly fine, other than that we needed to record some game shows, which we didn't have the availability to go back into the booth. We had to record on the Zoom, which did affect the audio, but through editing, I did manage to make it less discernible. Like, you couldn't really pick up on it too well, but only people who were listening with a keen ear could. In terms of group work, I do believe that it was a bit strenuous in how I was off sometimes and how sometimes we were late in. It kind of put us on the back foot when doing secondary and primary research. Me, with not being able to discern certain things or get certain points across needed to justify why we're going down this route of hip hop. On the other hand, Tendai, with his, he was able to get that out the way perfectly fine, but there were some lacking issues in the song list. We only had the artists' names, none of the songs. We kind of just left that to the few final days of editing when we were putting the songs in. We chose those artists and then picked certain songs from them, which did happen to create the problem of not finding clean edits. My overall opinion on how I performed, again, poorly at the start, but through production I was able to pick up my pace and get into things a lot more easier. And in fact, I was getting to the point where I was looking forward and enjoying doing the editing, etc., etc. And I feel that helped me produce work to a high standard. And I believe it's a high standard due from the feedback I got. They're around about the feedback was marked out of 5 for each question. So, does the radio show meet the brief? Got a 5 out of 5 for that on 2 occasions. And then moving over, it's just a spread of 4s, 5s, and a few 3s, and a tiny amount of 2s, and just 1. That was overall. So I do believe I did perform well, and I feel I performed well is because I was able to get into things a lot more easier. I was enjoying it, and so on and so forth. Things I could improve on, though, would have been time management and planning, because again, we're going into things, I was just a bit scatterbrained with certain things. I just didn't know what to do. I'll try it while I would waste time on working on something and then realize this is not going anywhere, or this doesn't really justify what I want, so I'd have to start over, etc., etc., etc. But to conclude, I'm happy with the end product, and if I were to make any changes, it will purely only be in primary and secondary research. That's it.